The title of my talk is, What is Your Tour de France? And I'm no bicyclist. I'm not going to talk to you about Lance Armstrong. I'm going to talk to you about what matters to students that would have boredom or being bored to death for the sake of an education be something completely, radically different. I've been teaching since about 1996. I teach hip-hop, cultural anthropology, and a racism course. Racism in America, not just about blacks and whites, but about how difference separates us and how we could agree to be offended and stay connected. So I'm going to talk to you today, just to get you a little background about me, about student as adult, and talk about it from the angle of boring, break it. In case you need to reach me, I'm a big Twitter freak. You can reach me at Curiosity. So please, I would love to hear your thoughts about today. I was talking to one of the organizers about being the first speaker and how I need to set a certain mark. Even though this has never happened before in CUNY, I'm going to set the bar high, and I'm going to tell you that if you've watched any TED Talks, I might not meet your mark, but what's great about all the TEDx events, I've been to many as a TED Fellow, is that the audience brings a special kind of listening. And for me, this is important as a professor, as a teacher, that half of what I do when I step into a classroom, I start usually on the first day. Let's imagine today is the first day of class. I would start with saying there are probably 3,000 years of knowledge in this room, and I have 49. So throughout the semester, my dear great ones, we're going to explore all 4,000 years of it, all that you bring to the conversation. That makes for a very different conversation in the classroom than what lectures usually bring, which is one-sided conversation. I do all the talking, you do all the listening. So the presence, the honor of your presence is requested, my dear great ones. And I start every class in that manner. My assumption is that students, as adults, though they're 18, a lot of professors treat them like kids or children. We talk about them like kids or children, like nuisances, like people who bother us, people who should do what we tell them. They should follow our orders. We treat them less than who they are. So I am for student as adult. And students come in the room as great. They were born that way. You were born that way, you know? You have everything you need to be great. You come into the classroom like that. And so it is my privilege to address you as great ones this day. And you should give yourself a round of applause for that. Oh, come on. This is early, but come on. So the reason that I do that has a lot to do with the mission of a lot of liberal arts colleges. And I would say it's beyond the United States. I've been visiting Norway, I've been to China in this last year, and I've been seeing a similar pattern of boredom of a sort around the world. The mission of the liberal arts at my college is to create great human beings, great citizens, and great professionals. It actually says future professionals, but I don't believe in the future professionals. I believe the students can be professionals right now. But I do it in a very curious way, and it's not boring at all. So I'm going to give you some insights into that by sharing a bit about several of my students. Before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about me. I have an addiction. I'm addicted to my iPhone. Actually, that's not what I want to talk to you about, though. I have another addiction. I am addicted to dictionaries. Anybody addicted to dictionaries? You know why I'm addicted to dictionaries? It's not the collection of words all in one place. It's not my Ph.D. brain's fascination with words, although I love words. It is not that I actually use the dictionary whenever I go back to words that I'm already familiar with. I look them up and I put a check mark next to every word that I look up. I wouldn't say there's a lot of things that I've looked in the book at, but I like to delve into the deeper meaning of words that I think I already know because I've learned over time that I don't know those words very well. For example, the word complacency. Did you know that it means like being stopped in the face of imminent danger? So I learn a lot from dictionaries, relearning words that I already know. But I am particularly intrigued in the dictionary by the numbers. Did you know that the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 under every word entry indicate the oldest to the newest definition of that word? Take, for example, the word student. The oldest definition in the Oxford English Dictionary from 1398 is someone who is addicted to or engaged in study. I've been teaching for almost 20 years, and that's not how students walk in my classroom. And I would even assert that it's not how students walk out of college. So I'm here to talk about boring, break it. Students are bored to death for the sake of their education. They're willing to sit in classrooms and take things without saying a word about it. They have a lot to say about it, and it usually comes out non-verbally. And teachers deal with it by trying to force students to come to where they expect them to be. That doesn't work. But we keep trying to do it no matter what. So there's some kind of status quo that I'm particularly interested in breaking in higher education in particular. We'd like to think that a lot of faculty meetings about curriculum change is going to change something. And I can assert to you that it has not, especially if the mission of higher education has been to create great human beings, great citizens, and professionals. In the United States, we have a dropout rate at the higher education level on a national level of 44%. That means that we do not have a commitment, what I assert should be the commitment of higher education classrooms, not institutions, but the people in the classroom, the professor and the students. There should be a commitment that each and every person wins in the classroom, that they're honored. And one way to do that is to make sure that the classroom is not a space where boredom shows up. The ways that we've learned to create that phenomenon of boredom, somehow we do something I find that, like, you know how you live in a floor in a house and you move around the furniture and you think you've moved to another place because you've moved the furniture around? That's change, in fact. I'm not interested in change. I'm interested in a transformation. I'm interested in moving the whole house, building a new house, having a new way of thinking about things. So if we can't move the classroom or move students literally, we can change the way they think about themselves, oh great ones. So where does learning happen in the classroom? I want to talk to you about the way that something I had a discovery this semester. So I'm teaching a cultural anthropology class, and we're looking at economic systems, production, distribution, consumption. And I have an epiphany. Students are learning from professors who think that the production of learning is in the classroom, and it is not. At least I would assert it should not be. So what it could look like, and tends to look like, is that we think the production of learning is that students do their homework, and they come to class, and they listen to us, and that's the production of learning. Maybe there's 5 or 10 minutes at the end of class they get to interact with us. What if it looked like this? The production of learning is what you do on your homework. In my class, I have a policy, an agreement actually. It's not a policy. I don't use policies in my classroom. I make an agreement, a contract with my students at the beginning of the semester. When the drop deadline comes and they haven't left my class, they're agreeing to these agreements. 100% work complete. I don't care if they don't get all the deadlines. I care that they do 100% work. So no matter where they are, no matter what kind of student they are, they've got to do every single piece of work assigned if they want to pass the class. So that means at the end of the semester they might cram a lot of stuff in, but they have to do that work. So 100% work complete. I require that students, I have a I hate, I'm trained as a Ph.D. I was trained this way, so a lot of my speaking comes out the way I was trained. I require things from my students. You have to meet the mark. But actually, they're agreements, and they're negotiable. Students can make counter offers to me about any assignment. I just met a woman, it's really interesting. I met a woman who said that she went to high school in the United States, and when the teachers gave assignments, she thought they were suggestions. So she made up her own assignments. And I think that's fascinating. It creates a much different place. And it creates not only something special for that student, if the teacher is willing. It creates an opportunity for everyone in that little society, that little microcosm of society, to see there are other ways of making a difference in life than following the rules. So, I think, do I have any other slides? Yeah. I just want to, before I get into the meat and potatoes, I want to thank the TEDxChisinau crew for inviting me and bringing me here. Boring, break it, bringing transformation, not change, through creative destruction to the status quo of higher education. What if learning began and happened with the production? The students do their homework, they come to class, we distribute the knowledge that they learn. We talk about what they learned in class. I do very little talking. They talk about what matters to them, what's interesting to them about that. If we're doing a conversation in my anthropology class about linguistics and about learning how language shapes you in different cultures, we might end up talking with one of my students, Brian, about how he's been limiting the way his mother, his Korean mother speaks to him because he wants her to speak in English. And he has an epiphany in class saying, I've been forcing her to abide by my conception of what it is to be an American. And it radically alters his view of life so that the real consumption of learning happens in his life. I should learn about what's happening about the learning from my students. I can't possibly know what I'm teaching until the students tell me what they're learning. So at the end of class, I have a final reflective essay. In one class, when I began to have an epiphany about this approach to my teaching, in fact, last week one of my students said, you don't teach, you help us notice what we need to learn. And I've been saying this for years, and it was great to hear students say this to me. So I give out the reflective essay, and I ask them to tell me what was interesting, not boring, what was interesting for them about this class. It could have been somebody else they learned something from. It doesn't have to be me. And one time I got an essay from a woman named Sila Mavruk. Sila had never talked. She sat in the very back row of a 32-member class. The whole semester she never talked. There was only one day that she spoke. It was the day that I do pair sharing. So I have another agreement, which is 100% participation. It's a promise I make to my students. In the class, everybody's going to participate at least once every class for 28 classes. How you do that is that I have you pair share. And this day, Sila had to pair share with me. This was the worst for a student who's quiet. She was absolutely mortified. And she had to come all the way down and share with me. And she shared something brilliant. This was like 5 years ago. It was brilliant. And I remembered we miss opportunities to teach through collaborative or cooperative learning. Not something I've thought of that should be learned, but just from a moment that makes everything different and not boring. She shared something brilliant, and I said to her, can you share this with the class? No. And I was like, can I share it? And I did. And that is the only time Sila ever spoke in class, so to speak. The last class, I get a final reflective essay. It says, I have been a drug addict since I was 15 years old. And this is the first time I found my voice. She never spoke in class. But that altered my reality about what was possible if I could get more students to share their insights of their final reflections in class instead of out of class, to make the economy of learning happen outside of class and me learn what's going on in class. They come back to share with me what they've learned instead of me spending a lot of time packing a lot of knowledge on top of what matters to them. So let me tell you the idea of where this title, what is your Tour de France, comes from. Before I do that, I want to just give you a quick list of things that are boring about higher education. One is taking notes. Why do you need to take notes? Anybody in here have an advanced degree of any kind, bachelor's degree, hands, right? Do you keep your notes? Some people keep their notes for years. They never go back to them. They don't make any sense. You're only going to remember one or two things from your class, so what's the point of taking notes? Why aren't we creating an economy where people are sitting and engaged and listening, not only to the professor, but to each other? What else is boring? 20-page papers you never get back that go in the trash that are contributing to the destruction of trees, at best. Boring. Complaining about Facebook. Faculty love to complain about Facebook, Google, and about Wikipedia. It's an open source technology. We could actually take over Wikipedia. I don't understand this. One of my fellow TED Fellows is from Bahrain. She invented a huge open source platform for people, young people in the Middle East to share while she was sitting in a classroom on Facebook. Honoring the same 4 students who talk in every class. Boring. Anybody notice the same 4 people talk in your class? Look at your other classes, the same 4 people talk. There was a study done that the same 4 people talk in all the classes. So it's essential that you distribute the knowledge around the room through pair sharing, through always inviting people who don't talk to talk, or from passing the buck. You know what they do in our Congress in the United States? I take my 5 minutes and I defer it to the gentleman from Iowa. To actually have the students be in control of who gets to speak happens. Also, what's boring is honoring the A and B students. No disrespect, but you came to the classroom knowing how to make A's and B's. That means you're not learning. There's nothing new going on for you. It's really proud. But what happens when a quiet student like Sela speaks up in class? Changes everything. And this matters if we're about creating great citizens and about creating a citizenry where everyone's participation matters. This makes a difference. Oh, there's one other, and what's also boring to me is a 44% dropout rate. It's not only boring, it's offensive, because we think that those C, D, and E students aren't as important, and we treat them that way throughout a semester. And we wonder why people commit suicide, why they're disenchanted with society and don't want to vote in the United States. We wonder why there's an impact, and people in higher education do not want to take responsibility for that. But it's time that we do. And it can be fun and engaging and not boring people to death. So we have to be about books, not books, but people. We've been very concerned about teaching what's in the books and not paying attention to what's going on with the people in our classroom. So I'm teaching a class. I have a couple of accountability policies, given that I have kind of an open source approach to learning. If I have 100% work complete and you can do it at any time, I need to know who's doing the work and who's not doing the work. I am not hands off. So I check in. So it's a Thursday. I teach on Tuesday, Thursdays generally. On Thursday, I have a student. I'm teaching an urban male academy of Latino and African American men. There are no women. It's 20 guys. It's really great. I'm the only woman. It's awesome. And there's this one guy named Bob in my class. And he's kind of the class clown. And I honor each and every student exactly the way they come because each and every one is great. So I'm sharing with them about a story from a dissertation advisor of mine. She's an African-American woman, had gone to Greece, studied women who were influential in their war, elder women. When she came back to share her work, they made her a delicacy. And this delicacy was soup with little baby sparrows in it. You know, the little wings? And then Bob says, were they dead or alive? And I thought, you're kidding me, right? He goes, no, I don't know. Were they dead or alive? And the class is laughing, and I said, wait. So if we're going to honor each and every student the way they are, as great, then we've got to allow them to think through moments like this. So I asked him, There's soup and baby sparrows in them. If they were alive, he says, they'd fly out of the soup. And I thought, the class actually did exactly what you did. They laughed. And I said, while you think that's funny, Bob didn't see that. I know you did, but he didn't. So he gets a little benefit from that moment, and it seems like nothing. The next class, I'm checking in to see if everybody's done their quizzes, which they do outside of class. Only 4 of the 20 students had done the quizzes. Okay, now we got to have a conversation about what leads to the title of this talk. The integrity wheel. Imagine there's a wheel, I say, and there are spokes in the wheel. If one of the spokes is bent, you can ride to the corner store, the little convenience store in your neighborhood, but you'll never win the Tour de France. So when students are in classrooms all around the world, if we don't know what makes a difference that would have them want to run a race as long as the Tour de France, we'll never have an impact with what we're trying to empower them with as citizens, as human beings, or as professionals. So I give them this little lecture about the wheel and the integrity. Integrity not like morality. Integrity like the wholeness of something, a design that needs to be complete. 100% work, 100% participation, 100% paying attention when you're not. And I ask the class, so do you see anything from this conversation? And guess who speaks up? Bob. Bob says, I think I need to grow up. And I'm like, brilliant, Bob, brilliant. That is so brilliant. Now I'm emulating for the rest of the students that you need to find out what your Tour de France is. Bob's was, I think I need to grow up. And for the rest of the semester, I can hold the space of that for him while he's working it out. I don't have to make him be on time. I don't have to make him do the work. I just need to hold for him. I thought you wanted to grow up. Oh, great one. Didn't you say you wanted to grow up? Oh, great one. Whenever there's an encounter where he's not being himself. So it matters what your Tour de France is. This can take you through a semester. But if I'm doing all the talking as a teacher, you'll never find out what the Tour de France is for each and every student. And you must be accountable for that. I say I am accountable for that. Because I hold that each and every student in my classroom is great. And I hold that each and every person in a society is great. And I hold that that would make a difference in the world for human beings. So we need to humanize higher education. And it's time that we step up and give that opportunity back to the people in the classroom. And they need to tell us when they found their voice and what they gave away to their family from learning stuff in my class. So, what is your Tour de France? Thank you.